Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. The Dawi are off for a bombing run against the dreaded forces of chaos. We have Xael is leading the Dawi, and stratgame is leading the chaos forces. So for the Dawi, for the army they have brought, we do have Grombrindle leading the forces, bringing his flash bomb, a nice reduction to speed and a reduction to melee defense, so that'll be good against any chariots or kind of any of the more mobile lords that Chaos can be bringing. We also have Felix, who is going to be bringing a nice little array of abilities here. We have Blood Oath, which gives a area regeneration to any lords or heroes. So he's going to be sticking really close to Grombrindle here, giving Grombrindle a nice little bit of regen. He has Helping Hand, which can give lord or hero nice little buff to melee attack and 44% damage resistance. And he also has his ability Karagul, which will give himself fire damage and a very, very nice bonus to melee attack and bonus versus infantry, which will put him up to a whopping 90 melee attack when he has that popped. So that'd be a very good against if you see Archaon here, or just really kind of just the general infantry of chaos. For the rest of the army, we have some Thunderers in the back, a couple of units of those. We have some miners with blasting charges up in front. But for the front line, we have Dwarf Warriors with great weapons, as well as some long beards as well. So we have 3 long beards and 3 dwarf warriors. And in the skies, of course, we have the 2 gyro bombers and 1 of the gyrocopters with brimstone guns. So that's a very nice bonus for large and armor piercing. Really, the armor piercing is what's going to be good. So against like chariots or any of the other larger monsters like dragon ogres or something like that, but mostly for chariots, that'll be very good. And then of course you have the armor piercing for the gyro bomber, which will also help against those mobile units. Now for chaos, we have Kolek Suneater bringing his Star Crusher. Probably a little bit of an off pick here. You generally are going to see Archaon. Kolek can get sniped out fairly quickly from the cannons or the Thunderers, but as long as he stays a little bit more protected, though we got a couple throwing axes here as well, so they'll be good at screening out the gyro bombers and gyrocopters from the chariots, which is why they are all kind of clumped up together. So we do also have 2 Gore Beast chariots. They are a little slow for a chariot, but against the Dawi, they have very good armor piercing and a bonus versus infantry, so everything that you need to deal with the Dawi. For the rest of the forces, we have a couple of Chaos Warhounds. They'll be pretty much acting as cleanup, trying to get into the back line, shut down the cannon, shut down the Thunderers, and chase off anything that routes. For the front line, we have Chaos Marauders with great weapons. We have 4 of those, and coming up in the rear, we have Chaos Warriors with great weapons. 4 of those. So pretty much pushed a bunch of armor piercing across the board for chaos. Pretty much everything that you need to deal with the Dawi. They do have no shields, so they'll be taking all that fire from the Thunderers, and you do have the miners with blasting charges who will do well against the Chaos Marauders, but not so much against the Warriors, though they'll still do fairly well, but they'll probably use up all their ammo on one of those Marauder units. Well, let's get things going, shall we? As the gyrocopters and bombers are firing away. Looks like they are targeting Kolek, though these Marauder horsemen will be able to screen them out fairly well. Throwing axes do quite well against the gyrocopters. You might also see manticores in this match as well. But one thing that I do not see is actually any magic for Chaos, which is a little interesting. Usually we like to see at least some form of magic. It's kind of why you often will see Archaon, because he does have Fireball, which is good against like cannons and stuff like that. But the front lines are underway. The miners were able to use only a couple volleys or even just 1 volley of their blasting charges before the Marauders were able to get into the front line. But now the rest of the units are engaging. The Dwarf Warriors against the Chaos Marauders. It'll be a pretty even trade with the Longbeards. These will have a much better time against the Marauders. Now once the Chaos Warriors get in, that will be a different story. But so far, you can see Kolek is just getting absolutely eviscerated. This is why you generally don't see him, because everything is just going to absolutely just target him. These throwing axes just aren't able to screen out the units fast enough, and there goes Kolek already. And if these Marauder horsemen do not come right around Kolek, he is going to be off the field very, very quickly. Though the Gore Beasts are now getting into the backline. So the shots that were focused on Kolek now left these Gore Beasts kind of run free, but it's still a very good trade for the Dawi, as they do have an initial edge in that balance of power. Dwarf Warriors are able to beat those Chaos Marauders in the front line, but here are the Gore Beasts getting a nice rear charge off onto these Dwarf Warriors, allowing those Marauders to win that engagement, and the Longbeards are also doing fairly well against these Chaos Marauders. So they have taken quite a bit of damage, and the Chaos Warriors are pretty much all, well, at least a few of them, are just kind of sitting in the reserves right now. Some of the Warhounds have gotten onto the Thunderers. The Thunderers still have quite a bit of ammo themselves, so it'll take a little while for them to even break. I think the Chaos Warhounds probably should have gone for these cannons first, especially now that these Longbeards are kind of pinning in these Chaos Warhounds. The Gorbies are, well, I suppose, breaking down the Thunderers is kind of the biggest threat for the Gore Beast Chariots now that they are in close proximity to the cannons. The cannons really aren't going to be as effective in this particular engagement, but otherwise now the Gyro Bombers and Gyrocopters are pretty much running free right now, getting a few drops in, routing some of these Chaos Warriors even, and getting a lot of their shots off, so doing very good work. These Marauder Horsemen really need to get over and screen out these Gyro Bombers and Gyrocopters, because that is where they are needed. They are the only answer they have to them, and if they're using their ammo on anything else, especially to Grombrindle, they don't need to be doing that to Grombrindle, though they don't have Kolek anymore, because he is off. Looks like he has been chased off by one of the units of Gyrocopters, so that is going to be the leadership for Chaos gone, but otherwise the Gorbies are running havoc in the back line. These Thunders are actually able to repel those Chaos Warhounds. Not too surprising there with the armor that the Thunderers do have, but here comes the Gore Beast getting a nice charge off into those Thunderers, but the Gyro Bomber is still just firing in, able to shatter one of the Gore Beast Chariots with their focus fire, so doing very good target priority for those the Royal Dawi Air Force. But now the Chaos Warriors are getting into the cannons and are doing good work against the Longbeards, as some of the returning Chaos forces are starting to come back, and now the throwing axes are getting their shots in to the units that matter, though at this point you're pretty much only denying them their bombing, because pretty much they've used up all of their ammo. And I mean, the Gyro Bombers do have a very good gun on them. They can do a lot of damage to, like, especially they were able to completely eliminate one of the Gore Beast, and the sustained fire against Kolek, who was very good as well. But now I really don't think that Chaos has a good answer to both Felix and Grombrindle. These throwing axes, they don't have enough ammo, and they're too small a targets to really be able to effectively deal with them. They still have a Gyrocopter off in the sunset that the Dawi have forgotten, so I think these throwing axes do need to be a little bit more conservative, because if they do waste all their ammo trying to do some damage to Grombrindle and Felix, then it's going to have nothing to really deal with those Gyrocopters, and they'll be able to kind of run free. But otherwise now, yeah, the Gyro Bombers are completely out of ammo. It does have some bombers left, and it is doing very good work against the Chaos Marauders. A little less damage to the Chaos Warriors, but they are very, very low on health anyways, and some of the units are starting to return. These Warhounds do need to try and get back to chasing off some of these units. Any unit that can be separated from the Dawi formation will be very good, because now, if you see, it is just pretty much Felix and Grombrindle left against the tide of Chaos. There is quite a bit of Chaos troops left, and not a whole lot of well, there's actually no Dwarven infantry left, as we have the Gore Beast kind of chasing off some of the routing Dwarven units. But there is still going to be a Gyrocopter who is coming back now, and though it has a bunch of ammo left, and it still has some bombs, as the Gyro Bomber here is dropping its bombs onto the formation of Chaos Marauders. So I think right now Chaos needs to just avoid blobbing up right now. They still have a chance to come back into this, but especially because if you see that Felix is very low, but he does get Grombrindle's has no fear, so that does save Felix. So we'll see how his leadership holds off once that ability wears off. But that was a very, very helpful use of Grombrindle has no fear. Using it at the pretty much saving it until he absolutely needed it. Because had Felix broken right there, that would have just left Grombrindle to deal with the throng of, or the mass of Chaos units, but it looks like there will be a mass rout, and Chaos will lose, and the Dawi will take it. So we take a look at the after battle report. definitely Kolek not really doing a whole lot there. Again, I think that was not really the best Lord choice for this particular engagement. There's just so much firepower that the Dawi can bring, and you definitely see Archaon a lot more often. You can still bring him on his horse, run with the chariots, use the fireball to help either go for perhaps the gyro bombers or cannons if you see them. And I mean, burning head isn't really the best armor piercing, but I think the fireball is definitely going to be very, very helpful. But otherwise, yeah, having no magic really kind of hurt as well. I know that that Dawi are resistant to magic, but they are not immune, so any magic really does help. Otherwise, yeah, I liked all of the armor piercing. The Gorpies chariots are a very good pick, and yeah, the throwing axes, I think their target priority earlier on wasn't as good, or they just needed to get like directly underneath those gyrocopters and gyro bombers, and they just absolutely melt them when they are in that position. But yeah, otherwise that opening play by the dwarves really did well against Kolek. Was able to also get these the Gorpies chariots down really quickly, and even with the help of the Thunderers as well. They did very, very well. And yeah, I do really like the Felix and Grombrindle combination, or just Felix in general, bringing them in this particular matchup, because it allows the dwarves to have a bit more of staying power, especially if Archaon is on the field. Having Felix and Grombrindle would be able to hold their own against Archaon, even though he is a master duelist. Having that regen and all of that damage resistance and buffs to melee attack can really turn the tide in the battle. But that was a fantastic game, and I hope you all enjoyed the video. And as always, have a good one.